Welcome to Unscripted. I guess I'm your host, Shlomo Bielak, CTO at Benchmark. Today, we're going to learn about how to simplify and scale software delivery. Our focus here is going to be on how do I answer for who and how do I do it. Let's get started. So we wanted to take a theme here, and the Terrible Trivium is basically from the Phantom Toil booth. You can look it up and find out. He's essentially a terrible person who tries to make you focus on toil. We're just using that as an analogy that toil can occur within CI/CD process. We need to focus on how do we simplify, how do we sustain, and avoid getting stuck doing something as simple as tapping a rock with a pin, right? So our topic's going to be how do I scale CI/CD with your brilliant talent. We're going to show you why brilliant talent actually doesn't simplify and sustain your CD unless you do some special things. Get to know me a little bit. I put a few line items down. I do make a killer omelet. It is the cast iron skillet that's key, and then canola oil, not olive oil, just based on burning points. I spent $25 million to learn my epic failure. What I mean by that is my first 25 million really were poor results. After that, no one wanted to give me another $25 million, so I had to learn from it and then do it without that budget. Okay, so I've also been around the DevOps block, so all-day DevOps world, that sort of thing. That's my space. I do work for and help the DevOps Institute and Continuous Delivery Foundation. So you're going to get some key insight here. Okay, so why does simplifying CI/CD matters? Why is it important to your business? Look, the spend is very high today. We spend somewhere around 1.3 trillion USD on digital transformation efforts, and they're generally around releasing software. A large portion of that fails, 900 billion of it, that's the IDC statistic. And this year wasn't very different. I just grabbed the one that was as most recently published. They state it's wrong vision. I'm going to argue the IDC is wrong. I think it's more about sustaining and scaling using KPIs that solve your engineering talent constraints, right? You need to remove toil, you need to remove heroics, and CI/CD does a great job doing it if you architect it correctly. So in the case of my failure, I had great metrics, but it couldn't scale beyond the initial POC spending because I didn't solve toil, I didn't solve heroics. So why is it so hard to simplify? And why is there so much toil? Why is it so common? Why do so many of us today think what we're doing today is great, right? You go into so many clients today and they generally think they're in great shape, but in reality, they're getting metrics based on toil and talent. So let's break them up into three groups: poor talent pool, average talent pool, and then brilliant talent pool. Look, a lot of organizations are made up in these three areas. I tried to break them up in some way. The poor talent pool, the challenge is the difficulty of task. So if I want to simplify and I want to scale, the task is too difficult for a poor talent pool because they don't know what needs to be corrected and they don't know how. The to-do can't be done. They're not strong enough. So that's a challenge for some organizations. The organization that's an average talent pool where they don't really have those wizards or soldiers of fortune when it comes to CI/CD, and yes, they exist. There's a lack of innovation, meaning if you gave them and told them what to do, they'd have to bring out an outside consultant to then get the innovation portion, but the outside consultant doesn't really tell them how to fish. So they get into a bad state as well. Now, this is the one that's the most unique that no one will hear. Why I put brilliant talent as part of the challenge makeup is simply if your brilliant talent looks at something and they consider it to be a very little lift, they don't see it as talent heroics. They just see it as a task they can do in 2 minutes, but everybody else can't do it. So what essentially happens is if you do have a brilliant talent pool, they can do everything on themselves and they can do it very simply. But your concern is what happens when they're not there. Your concern is how do I sustain and scale outside of your abilities? But the person's perspective is it's easy, right? Why would I switch it? So give you just to simplify it, if I have a poor talent pool, I can't do it. I'm incapable. If I'm ignorant, what do? I need to bring in someone outside to give us guidance. And then the indifferent and lack of drive, which is, it's so easy. Why do I need to change, right? I don't need to change. Dude, I can do this so fast, right? So again, you're being hoodwinked, right? Maybe by ourselves. the way we interpret things of how ease or lack of perspective. But again, we're being hoodwinked because we're not able to sustain and scale, even if I have a brilliant talent pool, which is where you want to be. Okay, so that's the root cause of all heroics, right? The root cause is each group has their fallacies. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to walk through each of them, and then I'm going to tell you their perspective and their rationalization. So perfect example, we had a member of our team do harness certification. We had a chat. He mentioned to me, look, I could have just scripted the answer to one of the exam questions in 2 minutes and not spend 30 minutes on a native integration. And then I asked him, please tell me you did the native integration. He's like, yeah, I did the native integration, but I was really tempted to do the minimal work so I could just get it done because it's so easy, right? In that case, he's already been coached, and I'm going to show you what that coaching is and how we should architect things so you don't get stuck in this from a talent pool that's great. And then the example number 2, I'm going to use from past experience. You're going to have an A team in every organization. Their mentality is going to be they're great. And why would I change if I'm great? They're not actually looking at it as, am I doing this without Toil? They're just in a state of, I'm currently the best we have. So why would I change anything? You're not doing anything different. The difference is one has talent heroics and one doesn't. If you have talent heroics, you can't sustain and scale because that's a variable outcome. It's based on who is in my team today, who is in my team tomorrow. You cannot deliver software into systems based on Johnny's at his desk this weekend. Doesn't make sense, right? Okay, so we kind of try to solve that. Originally, we did that by measuring on calls, doing like change logs on deployments to figure out what's going on. Is it based on who's on and how much work they have to do? We also created a Toil calculator. It basically tells you where's my problem and how much time am I spending on it. If you find a big problem, which I'm guaranteeing everybody has, you need to solve who's the simplify and scale for, right? Is it going to be for development? Is it going to be for production? Is it going to be for security? It should be for every talent pool, right? You need to solve simplify and scale for the poor talent pool, the normal talent pool, and the brilliant talent pool, because they all have challenges. And you need to incorporate the stakeholders, dev, ops, and security. They all need to be a part of it, because what you're trying to do is get end to end without Toil. How do I do that? If you don't have every stakeholder, you're going to have bottlenecks and measurements that are missing. So I'm going to go into my $25 million ouchie. Essentially, we had no failures. I would never let a deployment fail. We always succeeded. Every window that we had, surprisingly, had change window and didn't realize you don't need one. At the time, we actually had windows where we did the changes. We were always successful. The metrics were good. But in reality, my team was tired, worn, dedicated, loyal, and focused on Toil. We presented this to the leadership, and the leadership said, of all the time you've shown me, this is the only one that's an epic failure. And I said, this is the reality we need to fix, right? We made a massive spend, but it's based on a lot of heavy lifting. We need to change it. So in that respect, we brought in harness. Like, I mean, orchestration is key. Within simplifying, sustaining, scale, keep in mind that automation and orchestration are very different. Automation is the components that automate your tasks. Orchestration is putting them together so you have a sum of all the parts, right? The sum of all the parts is what you need to tackle, which removes Toil, right? You can't have independent pieces that have humans running them. So we fixed our epic failure. This is a representation of the same applications. Obviously, I'm hiding them. And the automation is not orchestration, was the mentality. We needed to orchestrate the entire process. We recognized where our Toil was, and then you'll notice that the guy is healing, right? Again, everybody knows battle scars are very scary when they happen, but when they heal, they're your learning, they're your improvement. They're recognizing that you surmounted your failures, right? Okay, so our approach was reward. If you're stuck in trivial tasks, the Terrible Trivium's got your talent heroics going on, you need to simply reward group benefit instead of self-benefit. Do not reward people for being heroes, right? If you do have a hero, identify them. Tell them you need to enable an inner source model. What I mean by that is everything that they create can be used by another team. Make sure that whatever they do create that could be used by another team gets into a template library and version that. That way, if you make changes, you don't hurt other people. And then measure repetition weighting. The higher the repetition weighting is, meaning how often will I have to do this job, the worse the toil is going to be. Now, I'm going to challenge every single person on this session and say there is no task in IT that will be one time. It's not true. Like I was in a situation where we started with Azure and we're like, Azure's our go cloud. And then they're like, no, let's go AWS. They're cooler. Okay, fine. That's your perspective. We went to AWS. No. Our CTO likes GCP. Okay, well, let's switch to GCP. So one-time tasks may be the current state, but there isn't really in technology. You need the ability to switch wherever you are, or operate wherever you are. So create the process, not a script. Use native integrations that don't need maintenance, right? If I create a script, how easy can someone else use it? If I use a native integration and I publish it in a template library for someone else, they're going to use that native integration too and understand how to consume it. So we want to create the process, not automation, right? The automation will be leveraged by orchestration, but you got to do it in a way that others can consume it. So reward that behavior. Okay, applying the approach, we talked about it a little bit. Build a cloud platform is almost every organization today is trying to do this. Is it really a one-time deal? I comment on this. We were originally AWS OpenShift. We decided to stand up GCP JKE. Did it take a lot of effort? Hell yeah, that was a really big effort. Now would it be? Not so much, because we started rewarding Terraform modules. We started rewarding operating models. What I mean by that is like documented operating models, how to use technology, how you onboard people and then have a clear onboarding documentation. I don't know how many teams skip the documentation, right? Again, we're not soldiers of fortune. We need to make sure that our brilliance is consumed by others. You need to create it in such a way that your brilliance is simplified so that it can be consumed. And then once it's consumed, sustain and scale of CI/CD will occur. It's just, you need to stop assuming that what's really easy for you is really easy for someone else, right? It's the mentality of the outside, the SI as well, right? They're coming in, giving you their brilliance, but are they teaching you how to do it yourself? The answer is no. So you have to solve that, right? You have to change that within the culture. Run a security report. I don't know how many times I've had someone say I'm audit prepping. And I'm like, really? You're going to run a script in a cron job or an OpenSCAP profile on a machine just so you can get a report for audit? Why isn't there automation swagger or part of the CI/CD process that incorporates all this audit collection? Why am I spending my time on this? Why are you doing this regularly? Oh, I'm good at it. I'm fast. It only takes 2 minutes. It takes you 2 minutes, 12 another person, an hour for someone else, and 14 hours to learn. So why don't you put that as part of the pipeline and then maintain the process in the pipeline for enhancements? Again, reward a template for consuming this security technology for any pipeline. Don't reward someone who creates a script in a cron job and creates a task completed in the stories. Change your JIRA stories. Every JIRA story should say, as part of the weighting, I template this. I create an onboarding process documentation. I create operating models. This isn't for everything. It's for anything that you think others could benefit from. So if you're advancing, you want the teams that are your exemplars and archetypes in your organization, the A team, to uplift others. That's the source of sustaining and scaling, right? Getting someone else's work, creating that as something completed for yourself, and then moving on to something else. I want to talk about and show an archetype because I think it'd be beneficial for someone to recognize. This is an archetype that we used Harness. I don't work for Harness. People have asked me that. I just found it really wicked. Like, the reality is, if you can be an orchestrator that unleashes my sustain and scale CI/CD, I'm going to use you wherever possible because my toil and heroics are going away, which I don't want. So I'm going to move it one level higher and say, if I build archetypes, I can actually build an archetype of this whole thing. And then teams can swap out components as they want. So if someone says, love the idea of build with cloud, but I want to reuse that. Oh, but I don't want to use white source. I want to use something else. Or I don't want to use static code analysis with Sonar. I want to use something else. Switch it out. The pipeline as code flow is the same. My lift as a pipeline itself becomes your archetype for use. And you just adjust components as you need or add components where you want. It's giving you sustain and scaling archetypes from the highest level possible, which is the entire pipeline. So we have a few other additions that I want to talk to here, which isn't really, which isn't exemplified, which is create environments as part of the function of CI/CD. That way you don't have a team that does creating the infrastructure and you wait for it. Include your security within the model. I highlighted them in red, which ones are security components. Get the output from them, put that into gating in some way where you're just measuring, are we improving or degrading? And do the upfront work, right? I jokingly had my first presentation with Harness actually in Atlanta. The guy's screensaver turned on. I think it was Nick Durkin. His screensaver turned on and it conversation. I'm going to adapt. You're going to have more dinners to eat with your family at dinner time. That is the outcome of sustaining and scaling CI/CD, right? You need to remove the human element with regards to, I can deliver software into environment. I want to deliver value, not time, right? If I want to deliver value, I need to remove the toil in the process. I need to remove the talent heroics where people just say, it only takes 2 minutes. You're my most brilliant. You take those 2 minutes to uplift 100 minutes for someone else. So this is what we're trying to show. The Terrible Trivium is basically our perspective and our abilities. Our abilities basically present a rosy situation where I can do something, it only takes me a few moments, why do I need to change it? It's fine. In reality, for the other person, they look at it as a daunting task, and we're not considering or being empathetic to their requirements. So if you have brilliant talent, weight their contributions for the group, reward the templating of pipelines, automation swagger, inner source capabilities that others can consume it. And don't forget, most importantly, the documentation so that someone can learn, adapt, and then become the person who can fish for others, right? You want to make as many change agents as possible within the process. This is just one archetype. You could make however many that you want. The key here is this one took away maintenance windows. This took away deployment calls. This took away blackouts. This took away outages. It increased our confidence into production. And the key to it wasn't just the orchestration. The orchestration was the removal of heroics and toil. It was the perspective that if I can produce value, I should not get the short-term gains. I should reward the long-term benefits for all that want to sustain and scale. So with that, I'll close. I thank you very much for joining us. I put an email if you wanted to contact, but thanks for joining Unscripted. I hope you see as many sessions that advance your skills as possible. Cheers.